Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today will be a hard video for me. Soren is one of my favorite characters of all time, Illyana is adorable and wonderful, Bastian is basically the Fire Emblem version of Shakespeare. I absolutely love all of these characters. Unfortunately, from a gameplay standpoint, they've been given the shortest stick for mages in Fire Emblem history. To give a very brief overview and set the table for what I mean, mages have flirted with being overpowered for most of Fire Emblem's history. They bypass traditional defenses to hit the usually much lower resistance, they're innately 1-2 range without accuracy or damage penalties, and they usually gain access to incredibly good utility in the form of staves, as well as unique tomes like Nosferatu and Bolting. The only things that mages tend to lack are mobility and bulk, but even these vary from game to game. Some of the strongest mages in Fire Emblem, like Pent, Asvel, and Lysithea, are notably powerful because they either buck tradition and have solid mobility and bulk, or they double down so hard on magic and utility that they become irreplaceable. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the sad state of Tellius mages. Mobility, bulk, and utility, the three things that make or break mages, are all just not present. In terms of mobility, compared to the GBA games, every single class except mages and clerics got a +1 to base mobility. Every single one. Cavalry are moving 8 or 9 tiles, other infantry move 6 to 7, but mages are stuck with armors at 5 to 6 move, making the desert the only time that mages have a mobility advantage over any other class. Looking at bulk, things don't get much better. In a vacuum, units like Bastian and Calill have reasonable bulk, but this is Tellius, where once again, every single class is bulkier, much harder to kill, and especially difficult to one-round, so your Sage pre-promotes will still have a hard time standing on the front lines. Speaking of bulk, Tellius was the turning point in modern Fire Emblem where most enemies started getting competent resistance to go along with their defense, meaning mages are only going to be more effective than physical units on defense-heavy enemies like Armor Knights. The weapon weight formula being moved from Constitution to Strength also hurts mages, with most getting weighed down by any tome except basic wind magic. And speaking of weapons, tomes are absolutely terrible in Tellius. Base might is incredibly low, weapon level trains horrendously slow, and weapon ranks are split between fire, wind, and thunder, slowing down your progression even further. You can only forge base level tomes, and the A rank tomes that take so much effort to reach are only 1 or 2 points stronger than a max forge that you could get and use from the moment you get the forge. Add in the fact that Nosferatu is locked to light magic and thus only usable on promoted priests, and siege tomes, while being decently available, are quite weak compared to the bulk of enemies, and the offenses of mages are really reliant on getting absurd magic growth, hence why Soren is viewed so highly compared to every other mage. As for utility, well, Tellius tried to reinforce mages as specialists against Laguz, with each element dealing effective damage against a particular tribe, but with how weak base tomes are, especially in Path of Radiance doing only double effective damage instead of triple, and the massive bulk and speed of most Laguz, you're rarely going to feel like your mage is truly a Laguz killer. When it comes to general utility, Path of Radiance in particular threw a bomb on the fire, sealing the fate of every pre-promoted sage by taking away staff access and giving them knives in return, the only weapon type that's not a real weapon and is actually just basically useless, especially with sage's low base strength. And, even for the mages that can promote to gain staff access, Tellius removed or heavily limited most utility staves, and healing is a lot less meaningful, with Path of Radiance's 4 item-only slots, and Radiant Dawn's massive inventories and incredibly powerful and plentiful healing items. Every single change that Tellius made to mages feels like a response to their dominance of the GBA era. Back then, if you had a mage with decent stats who could promote for staff access, especially if they got solid bulk, you had a recipe for a game-destroying unit. There's a reason why almost every GBA ROM hack has at least one mage that feels unstoppable, and it's this combination of bulk, defense-piercing damage, and flexible range with no penalty that makes it possible. So, what would it take to fix Tellius mages? First of all, get rid of knife sages in Path of Radiance, that was way too much. Bring mobility back up to match other infantry. Let the high rank tomes be powerful to actually reward the dedication it takes to master an element. And then, maybe, you'll turn mages from totally overlooked utility to actually effective additions to your army. But what are your thoughts? Do mages and Tellius need any help, or are they just fine? Let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, this is Mithril Zenith signing out.